exciting. We're colossal. We're stupendous. We're terrific. We're even superlative.
Welcome back, fellow agents. It is I, your animated agent of awesome. Well, not even animated. Your colossal creation. Um, the amazing agent of awesome. There we go. X7 here, the host of Zenorama, the podcast of heroes and monsters. And tonight, we're going to review The War of the Colossal Beast, which is what was on Svengoolie earlier, or last night.
What that made that print is about 10 times the size of a normal man.
That could be King Kong. He was 10 times as big as a man. However, it's not. The War of the Colossal Beast is a sequel to The Amazing Colossal Man. But before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, vote in the poll, and leave a comment. They're always fun to read. So, and also grab yourself a colossal stack of wheat cakes. Let's get into this sequel that was not advertised as a sequel. It's The War of the Colossal Beast. It's from 1958, June 30th. But it was released. It runs a whopping 69 minutes. That is not a colossal time frame at all. And it was a sequel, definitely. It was not advertised as such, even though Colossal Man, Colossal Beast. It had a whole different cast. None of them returned, including Glenn Manning. Well, not Glenn Manning, but Glenn Manning is the character. It was Glenn. Dang it, I'm drawing a blank at the original Colossal Man. That was Glenn Langan, because it's always Glenn. So Sven can't, because of the rights with AIPs and archives and the rights to each movie are owned by separate people. That's why they have never shown, Sven has never shown Amazing Colossal Man, which is the superior movie despite Bert I. Gordon, the director, writer, and producer. And he did a lot of the sound effects. He wrote it, directed it. Bert I. Gordon, B-I-G, big. So, he produced it. And there are copies of The Amazing Colossal Man out there, but I don't know that it's been on television in years, which is kind of sad because it is the better movie. And a double feature would be, they could do it. I mean, it'd be fun to see that. So, be that as it may, this picks up where The Amazing Colossal Man leaves off. Glenn has fallen at the height of 60 feet. He gets a good old jab in the ankle and falls off the Boulder Dam in Las Vegas, and people think he's dead. But he's not. He just is horribly disfigured and kind of hungry. And that's why you see or hear that. I got to move this somewhere else. And that's what they're talking about there. I mean, that's what I remember as a child. This was on Channel 7, I believe. I want to call it Sci-Fi Flicks. It was not. Sci-Fi-Orama. Something like that. I'd really like to find out. But it showed Saturday afternoons. It showed these monster movies. And before I didn't see all of it because I remember the footprint and the empty truck full of produce.
What happens to our world if massive, monstrous man-beasts like this invade us?
Once again, Hollywood's trailer is lying to us. AIP, bless them for lying to us like that. But you had to know it was a sequel. So we come along, Joyce Manning, Officer Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Manning's heretofore unknown sister, shows up, and she's sure he's survived. Now, Glenn is not played by Glenn Langan anymore. He's played by Dean Parkin, and he just grunts and groans. I don't think he talks much because he's a different actor. He's scarred. He's lost an eye, and there's scarring on him. He's played by Dean Parkin, who was also the same sort of giant creature in The Cyclops, made by Bert I. Gordon a year earlier. And it's very similar makeup, although a little more horrific. as you can see in the thumbnail there, or the whatever you see. But he does a good job, good enough, because he doesn't really have to um, act very much. He just has to lie. He gets caught in Mexico. All this is. It starts out in Mexico. So there's uh, Army Officer Major Mark Baird, Roger Pace, scientist Dr. Carmichael, Russ Bender. Then they go looking for him. They find him, and he can't really remember everything because he's traumatized by the fall. How he ended up in Mexico is a they don't. They just kind of gloss over that. I mean, it was only 69 movies, but they catch him. They drug him and they take him back to Los Angeles. And guess what happens? You know what happens. How can you not know what happens? The inevitable happens. It always happens when you do things like this.
Flown a captive to a West Coast metropolis in an Army cargo plane, his arrival catapults the whole city into an ocean of fear. For this colossal beast is at war with the world, our world, a world his savage instincts can only hate.
An airlift is being set up and food will be parachuted down to him. He'll be supplied with everything he needs. Get all the aircraft into the air at once.
See, they were treating him well. I think if they'd have just fed him, I believe he was stuck at the size of 60 feet due to that hypodermic needle into his ankle, which is a very famous scene in the first movie. And you do get a flashback to a lot of the first movie. So this movie probably, if you take out the stock footage or the flashback sequence, it probably only runs about 50 minutes, which is fine. I mean, it zips by and it's a pleasant enough movie. It's, like I said, not as good as the original one because of Glenn Langan's performance as Glenn Manning. A lot of Glens in there. It's Colonel Manning. Let's just leave that out. The Glenn. Okay, I'm done. Not Glenn Sound, which was responsible for vocals for Godzilla's Revenge, etc., and also Rocky and His Friends, or Rocky and Bullwinkle. Be that as it may, they take him to Los Angeles. You know, even then in 1958, yeah, the most populated city on the West Coast. Bad idea, guys. So eventually he breaks out and goes on a slight rampage, even though Joyce tries to convince him that he's in there, but he does figure it out eventually. Joyce was in It Conquered the World as Joan Nelson and The Giant from the Unknown, Earth versus the Spider, and then Elmer Gantry and North by Northwest. She was uncredited, but she got to be in big time movies. She didn't have a big career, but yeah. So we've seen her before. We've talked about her. And of course, we've talked about AIP because they were the films of my childhood as a young agent. So it goes on a rampage. She's still trying to tell him that, oh no, you're still you. You're still you.
The Colossal Man is loose in Los Angeles.
You never really get a lot of monsters running around Los Angeles. It's kind of sad. I think them took place in the sewers of Los Angeles, but they didn't do a lot of destruction. Harryhausen never had anyone attack Los Angeles, San Francisco. There was the T-Rex in Jurassic Park 2 was released in San Diego. But LA seems to be, I mean, I'm sure there are things about it. Maybe the Slime People took place in LA.
The civilized world in blood-freezing horror as the immeasurable power of this colossal beast threatens a war of brutality such as we've never known.
Well, chances are he could be killed. He's just human. He was just a big human. His heart was supposed to break, was not the right size. So maybe it caught up, but if it was retarded like his growth, These are questions that some people who think about movies like this way too much have. In the end, he commits suicide. Joyce does get through to him, and he can't handle being that. He electrocutes himself on power lines near the Griffith Observatory after he's held uh, a bus full of kids hostage for a while, but he poofs. He goes. I mean, dust. The interesting thing is that last five, maybe 2 minutes of the movie is in color. Everything else is in black and white, and then suddenly it turns to color. This was something that would happen with lower budget movies. They do it to shock you. It happens with The Flesh Eaters, which we will review because it's one of my favorite movies and it's got a comic book connection. So, but it's effective. I mean, I'm sure it was surprising in the last, 5 minutes of the movie where it's, whoa, color, zap, oh, and then done. Boom. Nothing else happens. So that's it. Sven had a lot of fun facts about the whole cast, which the only one I remember was about Sally Frazier. Dean Parkin designed his own makeup, which is very similar, again, as I mentioned, to the Cyclops from the previous year. Once again, directed by Bert I. Gordon. I like these movies by Bert I. Gordon. They're not the greatest. I do think his best movie is The Magic Sword, which was from, I want to say 62, but it's in full color. Vampira's in it. It's just a fun movie. I did get to see it as a kid in the theater. We'll have to review it. It's a bizarre children's movie. Between it and Jack the Giant Killer, which we will have to review as well. Another movie I love, not the musical version. Those two are two strange children's movies, but the Magic Sword is wonderful, and The Pirate and the Boy is pretty good. But Bert, when he got into the 70s and was doing Food of the Gods and Empire of the Ants, they're just kind of, I don't know, they're filled with people you want to see get eaten by the monsters, the giant animals, which was a thing back then. And I know Sven has showed Empire of the Ants, which has never been one of my favorite movies, but this was fun. Svengoolie and Nostalgia Ferratu had a fun bit. I don't know if the rest of the Sven squad was on. I didn't really pay a lot of attention. Don't know what I was probably researching. I was researching the movie for my podcast tonight. Yeah, today. Yeah, that's the ticket. And I was with my wife, Morgan Fairchild. But it's a fun movie. That's all there is to it. And a double feature. It's 70 minutes. It's not even 70 minutes. And I don't know if the first one, Colossal Man, runs a whopping 80 minutes. So it's 10 minutes long. That's 150 minutes. And in a 2-hour and 2.5-hour time slot, they could conceivably show it, but you'd probably need 3 hours. It would be fun, though. I mean, I think so. Next week's movie is, I just saw it, and let me look here. We'll go back over here because I started it. The next movie is Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and I'm not watching it or reviewing it. I've seen it once. That's good. But I'm sure we'll think of something here. So, agents, until our next assignment, this is X7. Always reminding you to keep an eye out. When you see giant footprints, there's probably a giant around there, and you should run and hide. But until our next adventure and or assignment, this is X7 signing off.